the 533rd day of the war in Ukraine, the fighting was concentrated in these areas. In Berkhivka front, Ukrainian forces continued their efforts to take full control over the village of Urozhaine. The success of the Ukrainian forces in this direction was confirmed today by the General Staff of the Ukrainian Army, as well as from the pro-Russian source Rybar, who confirms that the Ukrainian forces continued to advance during the last 24 hours and now control the northern half of the village. As reported by pro-Ukrainian sources, based on geolocated footage, Ukrainian forces managed to cross the river from the direction of Staromayorsk and entered the center of the village, where clashes were reported. This is the geolocated position where clashes between Ukrainian and Russian soldiers were recorded happening today inside the village. As this on-the-ground Russian source informed, yesterday the whole village of Urozhaine came under heavy artillery fire and Russian soldiers were forced to abandon some of their positions. We still cannot say that the Ukrainian forces have full control over the village because, as some pro-Ukrainian sources informed, the Russian command is constantly sending new reinforcements from the direction of SYNKIVKA. But it is clear that after the loss of the key positions north of the village and with the Ukrainian forces infiltrating from the west, the Russian forces are now in an extremely difficult situation and it is unlikely that the Russian forces will be able to hold their ground much longer. In Kupyansk front, the situation is getting more difficult for the Ukrainians as it seems that the Russian forces have increased their efforts to advance northeast of Kupyansk. Some pro-Russian sources excitedly reported over a collapse of the Ukrainian lines near SYNKIVKA, but in reality this situation is not so critical for the Ukrainian forces, although difficult. Apparently, as confirmed by the most reliable part of the Russian and Ukrainian sources, fighting is still ongoing north of SYNKIVKA and northeast of Petropavlivka. Ukrainian forces reportedly withdrew from a fortified position near SYNKIVKA, where Gonzo raises doubts that this could be a maneuver to lure the Russian forces for the Ukrainians to then hit them on the flanks. Or, according to him, the Ukrainian army may decide to transfer the line of defense beyond the natural barrier of the Oskil river. During to the worsening situation, a mandatory evacuation of the population in 37 settlements close to the combat zone was announced in the Ukrainian-controlled territories of the Kupyansk district. This shows that the Ukrainian command may be preparing for a possible retreat across the Oskil river if this situation calls for such an action, but at the moment it is still too early to talk about a large-scale collapse of the Ukrainian defenses on this front. On Bakhmut front, clashes were reported in the direction of Klishivka and Andrivka. Both sides are making great efforts to fully take these two settlements under their control, but even after the recent clashes, it seems that neither side achieved any visible success. Andrivka continues to remain a completely grey area, while in Klishivka the situation changes every day. After the small advance of the Russian forces towards the center, it seems that Ukrainians have advanced a little, increasing the area of control north of Klishivka. But apart from these small changes, this situation remains a stalemate. Further north, Russian forces counterattacked near Berkhivka, pushing Ukrainian forces out and expanding the grey area south of the village. In Zaporizhzhia front, the situation has been quite unclear during the last week. Many clashes have been registered on the Robotyne Zherebyanky line, with positions often switching hands between the two sides. As confirmed from the most reliable sources on both sides, it seems that the Russian forces have recaptured some of the positions northwest of Zherebyanky as well as east of Robotyne. Clashes continue in the areas between these two locations as the front line here has not stabilized yet. Small advances of the Ukrainian army were confirmed today northeast of Robotyne as well as north of Zherebyanky on the western flank of the front. Friends, if you like my daily updates, I kindly ask you to hit the like and subscribe buttons, as this will greatly help the channel to reach a wider audience. That's all for today's update. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and have a great day.